Good morning. Hi, my name is Tisa Ho, and I have the privilege of working with the Hong Kong Arts Festival. And very, very grateful to Professor Kim and to the university for inviting me and giving me this opportunity to share some thoughts. At the moment there are many people trying to work out what this means, what the COVID-19 means, how we survive in the arts, what the arts mean. In fact, some places there are debates about how central it is to life, and there are lots of in a way this has given an amazing opportunity to think about what it is that we do and why it is important and in what way, and also what we can do to be sure of not only that we will survive, but that we will thrive, and that what we do, that the arts, music, will continue to be meaningful and relevant and part of life in the future, because life without this would be so sad. Um, but let me first just very quickly introduce my organization. So this is the Hong Kong Arts Festival. It's one of the oldest festivals in Asia, and maybe also quite old in the world. So we are now at 48 years. Um, we will be celebrating a 50th anniversary soon. The festival has grown up with the city, and at the moment, what we like to think that we do is that it is a festival not only in Hong Kong but also of and for Hong Kong. So most of our audiences are here, but about 15% will are visitors. And Hong Kong is a very open city, so we have visitors all the time, and this is kind of like normal life. In terms of what we do, we present all forms of the performing arts. So music, theatre, opera, dance, circus, things that are multimedia, things that are interactive, things that we don't exactly know how to describe yet, but which are interesting experiments. And in terms of the range, not only the genre, what we do is that we present the classics, because those are, I mean, they're classics for a reason, right? Because they survive, they're worth seeing, and they may also be generations of young people who have not seen those works, so they're definitely worth presenting. But also we try to present new work that experiments with new forms, new ways, sometimes new ways of doing work that we already know, so that it adds something to the whole ecology. And even when we do classics, we try to identify and look for works that are not uh, often often performed, or not often performed in the same way. So in a way, I guess what we try to do is to both respond to and to express the diversity that is in the city. So we have, extremely beautiful, large scale productions, but also tiny, kind of rather avant-garde. So this festival has gone on for 48 years. And this year, along with many parts of the world, including Korea, including so many friends from all around, we made history, not in a way that we have anticipated or in a way that we would have hoped for. We canceled the entire festival for the first time ever. So the festival normally happens in February and March, in spring every year. So after the Lunar New Year and before Easter. And because those two dates move around in the Gregorian calendar every year, the festival dates move around, and it confuses people, which I love, because it is again about a different way of looking at things, a different way of looking at the calendar. It's not like January 1st we start and then we go on, right? So this year, after the Chinese New Year, after the Lunar New Year, our venues were closed because of COVID-19. And for a while, we were waiting to see whether the venues would open again. The festival is going to start in mid-February. By the 4th of February, it was very clear that the venues would not be open in time. And in fact, by the end of January also, some international artists had been asking us, what's happening there? Is it safe? Should we come? I'm not sure. And especially with organizations that don't just come to Hong Kong, but also tour China. So the news about COVID-19 in China was already out, and people were nervous about it and wondering. So in fact, at least one, ensemble orchestra said that they probably won't come and they will miss our dates. So that's end of January, around Chinese New Year time. On the 4th of February, and these dates will always be in my mind. I'm very bad with numbers, but these dates are like in my mind and in my heart forever, because it was so big, it's so traumatic. So on the 4th of February, the executive committee had a special meeting, and we looked at possible scenarios. Can we cancel the first week? Can we stop? And can we wait and see whether something, what will happen if, because even now we are going through this every day, every week is still something new, and we don't know like 3 weeks from now what the situation will be, right? So uh, on 4th of February, we had this meeting to look at what possible scenarios there were. At that point, because the festival is a big international logistics jigsaw puzzle, so at that point, we already had freight leaving Europe and arriving in Hong Kong. We had some other freight, the scenes from big productions that was supposed to get onto boats soon. Air tickets were being booked. People were getting their visas and wondering where to travel. So looking at this moving jigsaw puzzle, the decision was taken on the 4th of February that we will need to cancel the festival in its entirety. Because with this big moving jigsaw puzzle, the later you make decisions, the more that has happened, the more difficult it is for everybody. So on the 4th of February, we decided that we spent the staff, my colleagues were around the clock in different time zones, nonstop, to be in touch with various artists, to be in touch with various groups. I'm sorry, I should mention that in addition to international and regional productions, we also do Hong Kong productions. So we commission and produce. So how to make sure everybody knows what's going on and what next steps are going to be. So two things happen at that point. I think one is that some of the people who were going to come internationally were actually a little bit relieved that they didn't need to come. I think that there was some anxiety, right? But everybody was totally supportive and helpful and wanted to and understood. Everybody immediately understood the pain that it was to say, after all of this years of work to put together the festival, it's not going to happen. Now, we were in a way very lucky because in February, the impact of this COVID-19 was not so clear in many parts of the world. And as I said earlier, I think some people were kind of quite relieved they don't, we don't hold them to the contract to come to Asia. And I think they were looking at, okay, if I don't come to Hong Kong this time, I can come another time and I can do some other work. And so the response to us was very positive. And so we were interviewed by the BBC, by New York Times, by all of these people, because this cancellation at that point, the cancel a whole festival, was still news. Very sadly, 2 weeks later, it's not news anymore, because you can see festivals around the world, theaters, everybody is really have no choice but to take this step. So we had enormous support in February, and I will always be grateful for the friendships and the expressions of sympathy. Then after we had told all of our stakeholders, our sponsors, the government, our partners, on the 10th of February, we made the announcement and we offered ticket refunds because we had already sold tickets for the festival, right? So we had to refund the tickets. And, in a way, it was a very sad and very difficult thing to do. But there's a silver lining to this. There's a very good side of this and very heartwarming side to this, is that, again, from the people who come to the festival, there was this outpouring of sympathy, of you poor things, we really feel for you. It must be so sad. It must be so difficult. And then also, there were people who said, listen, you're losing your entire box office income for the year. That's really horrible. That's really hard. So don't worry about the ticket refund. We will donate the ticket money to you. And that was so, so, so touching, because it felt that of the people that we have, that we say that we work with, right? The people that we say that we serve, the artists on the one side and the audiences on the other side. And I mean, what does a festival do? We connect the artists and the audiences, right? So on both sides, there was this enormous partnership, the sense of this wasn't a transaction. It's not like, okay, you put on the festival, I buy a ticket, I come, and then I enjoy myself. But this really, this real sense of community, this co-ownership of the festival. This is what we've always wanted to do. This is why we say that the festival is not only in Hong Kong, but it's for and of Hong Kong. And normally you think of it in a more academic or maybe a spiritual way, that in the arts we try and express what Hong Kong means, and that we hope that the work will resonate with our audiences. Obviously, we are doing something because the audiences that come to buy our tickets feel that they want to help, that they're part of this whole story. And so the wonderful takeaway from this for me, for the team in the festival, was that people in Hong Kong love this festival, and they're willing, and they will stand with us. And that's the most enormous takeaway. So right at the beginning, I said a little bit about, surviving this period that we're all struggling through, wondering what the arts in the future will be like. Well, I think one of the things that will become clearer is that what we had been doing in the past will be revealed in what we can do in the future. So as I was saying, the audience that knows us, that bought the tickets, that are a part of the community, became in a way closer in the community. And in the time since the cancellation, the communication has been, when are we back? When can we see a performance? Are you going to do another show? When, how? And so it's a real desire to connect. So those are, in a way, the two things right now that I think are important. One is that sense of community that we have built, and we haven't built it. If that hasn't been built yet, then it will leave us less strong to go, less able to go into the future. So I think those organizations, those artists that have this real sense of community with their audience that are really engaged with what you do, this will become an even greater strength in the future. Then the other one is this sense of connectedness, this desire to be connected, this desire to have the arts in our lives. So I think this is a very strong motivating force. So that's the cancer. Let me just show you. I wonder if I can pull up the first slide and just show you some of the things that we were not able to do. As I said, let's see. There we go. That one, yes. So it's music, theater, opera, dance. The opera was going to be Ariadne of Naxos. We also do Chinese opera. So those are just a very few of the programs that we had to cancel. It's in terms of numbers, it's not the biggest festival around. It was 125 performances, So, but in terms of undoing a festival, and it was a lot of hard and heartbreaking work. So there's dance, there's more contemporary, there's music. There were a couple of orchestras, but orchestra pictures are not so interesting. So we didn't pull those out. Um, if let me just show you the next slide also, because this is something else that we do. In addition to the festival performances, a year ago, we started a project called No Limits, together with the Hong Kong Jockey Club Charities Trust, which provided the funding for this. And this particularly shines a spotlight on artists of mixed abilities. So normally we don't think very much of them, and there are people in our community with different physical conditions, and this is kind of not something that we either think about very often. But with this project we focus on artists with different abilities, but performing not but and performing at very high levels. So and we in the way that we present the performances, we also specially focus on the needs of different audiences. So there will be relaxed performances where people who need to can move around if they can't sit together in rows in the usual way. Um, we we actually take out some seats to make sure that there's more wheelchair spaces. The building regulations require wheelchairs in Hong Kong, but sometimes it's not enough. And we do also sign language for the hearing impaired, and also some enhancement. So we try to cater, and we're still learning. So this is the second year that we were going to do this, and unfortunately, this also had to be cancelled because of the virus, because the venues were closed, because travel restrictions and so on. So those are the two things that we lost in 2022. A third slide is festival at Dai Gun. So the three together, I suppose, show you in a way what the festival would have done. The festival at Dai Gun is a little bit different from the festival performances that you saw in the first slide, which is, I mean, some level of interactivity for some of them, but mainly more conventional, traditional ways of enjoying the arts. And then with No Limits, it's a special population, if you want. The festival at Dai Gun, the Hong Kong Arts Festival at Dai Gun, is our most open platform. The thing that the one series that we do, which really embraces the community, and so there are and allows the greatest participation. So there's dance, audience, lots of audience participation. People actually come together, they rehearse together for a number of times, and almost everything there is interactive. There's a sound lab where you sound spa, where you go and you listen, to music and sound, and this you can always stand back and watch, but a lot of it is hands-on. It's really getting involved in the arts. So those are the three kind of chunks that we lost in 2020. Let me tell you a little bit about what we're going to do. This was really ironic because with the festival at Dai Gun, one of the dance pieces that we were going to do had to do with touching. There's a community dance choreographer from Finland who was working with, I think, also some old people. And for Asians, this is Asians tend not to touch so much, but she has this idea that human contact, actual physical contact, touching, is important, and it gives us something. So in the dance, she was going to incorporate this idea of touching each other, which dancers are more comfortable to do than many other people. But so think about the irony of it, that as we were planning this COVID-19 happened, and we have this physical distancing between people. In a way, it made the idea even more important. So going forward, in February, we had to cancel everything. We didn't know what was going on. Going forward, we are going to try and reschedule. In fact, we're rescheduling some of these performances. Some of them we will lose because the opera. This was going to be the Bayerstadt opera. I mean, they can't. Their rehearsal schedules are also all thrown out of order. Um, we don't know that they can bring. We know for certain that they can't bring all of the freight and all of the productions and the chorus and everybody out again in a different time of year. And indeed, we don't have the venues in a different time of year. So the festival is, as you can't just do it tomorrow. Um, but we are trying to reschedule some of the components, and this participatory work is something that we want to do again in Dagun, and we do have some dates in the second half of the year, along with some of the local productions. This one is special because the meaning of coming together in this way will be special, but at the same time we will be looking at because it changes all the time, right? In Hong Kong, only this last week, we could have 12 people together at a table in a restaurant. Before this, it was 8, and before this, it was none, right? This is progressing, and we are watching as this evolves. I think that some things will be the norm. Our venues are open now, but at 50% seating capacity, so that you have to have space between people. And things like masks and things like hand sanitizers and things like temperature checks. Those are just the new normals of how a venue is going to be. But this one, I wanted to just spend a little time on because that because it is so experiential, because it is so participatory, you the conditions of how we will do this, the conditions of how many people we can do this. I mean, one of the things that we did in this project last year was to have filled a square with, I don't know, 100, over 100 people dancing together, and it was a wonderful moment. Can we have 100? Is the impact the same with 50? Will it be different? I think it will be different. Will it be the 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 approach, the thinking for me now is that somehow what we do in whatever we can do will become even more significant, will become even more important. And so this final slide, there are very few images to look at, but there's one more slide. If you can go to the next one, are some of the programs that we will reschedule. As you see, the 3 pictures at the bottom have to do with the No Limits performances. They're from the region. They're smaller in scale and fewer people. And then the top 2 are Cantonese opera productions that we will reschedule. There are 4 great Southern Chinese Cantonese operas, and it was going to be a series of 4, 2 from Hong Kong and 2 from mainland China. But it looks like we will only be able to do the 2. But it's important. It's important work, and we're glad that we have the venues, and we will be able to do this. Some of the work that you saw in the first slide, we will do in the 20. Yes, thank you. We will now do in the 49th festival in 2021. So particularly the show with the 3 really great looking guys at the bottom. That's a local production called We Are Gay, and we will be doing this next year. There's some other international productions that just because the dates work, they will be able to come back next year. But we also have programs that we have been in discussion with for 2021, and so it's going to be a busy season. Still fraught with many uncertainties because as this COVID thing moves across the world in different pace at different times, some places are fine, they're open, but whether we can have people come from other parts of the world, whether they can travel, all of that is going to be a major consideration. I I've worked in this festival for over 10 years now, and we have never done so much scenario planning. We have never done so much plan B. What if this doesn't work? And what if, the plan B doesn't work? So that I think for anybody studying arts management, for anybody planning performances, I think that's part of what life will be like. I want to just talk a little bit about what is happening now in terms of all the online things. And Korea is one of the most wired up countries on earth. And if there are online capacities, then Korea has them more than anyone else. Um, I know that in February, March, almost as soon as the venues were locked down, all the major houses in the world started putting their archives online. So if you're interested in, Wagner, if you're interested in the Ring Cycle, there are more Ring Cycles online that you can enjoy now for free than ever before. There were two, I guess there are two observations. And this links back to what I said earlier about how what was done before this COVID-19 will impact what we can do now and how we can go into the future. So my comment just now was about community and connection. So the stronger your community is, the stronger you will be able to take that community with you going into the future. In the same way, those organizations that have very good archives, those organizations that started early to do HD live, to film, in very professional, very high quality level, all of their work, they were able to just push this out immediately. This is something that other organizations are not able to do, either because there hasn't been a focus for their work or because they don't own the rights. I mean, like us, as a festival, we don't own the intellectual property rights. We don't own the IP for the work that we present. We invite, we curate, they come, but the artists own the rights. So even the work that we have commissioned, and produced and financed and presented the premiere, so we have the rights only for the premiere or for a season. The IP goes back to the artist. So we don't have the rights. And we had not in the past thought about some way of holding on to some dimension of these rights, because our motive, our agenda was to help artists create these works and help our audience get to see them. So in fact, after we have done our productions, and if anybody wants to produce the work, if they want to take the piece of music, if they want to take the play and do another production, we're all for it. We're thrilled to bits, because it means that the work has a life beyond the time in the festival. So that was always very good. But as soon as this thing happened and we saw the amount of work that's being out, that's out with organizations that have archives that record it, we thought, this is something that we need to think about. And we are now doing this. So, you live, you learn, you have experiences, and you try and do something new. And there's a wonderful line in Beckett, right? You fail better, and you try again, and you fail better, and you improve. So going forward, I think all of us are going to think about some form of digital capacity. In a way, we don't know. I don't know. That there's discussion about whether all of this work that is out there for free is actually going to impact the market. And people will say, they may think, I can sit at home, I can be comfortable, I can watch this work online. Why do I need to get dressed, drive, go somewhere, sit with people I don't know, and not be able to, have a drink, go to the bathroom or whatever, and pay a lot of money to do this, right? So there are a number of discussions about this. of course, those of us who experience live performances know that it is totally not the same. And it's wonderful to be able to sit at home and watch all of this, but the experience of watching something live is just cannot be compared. It's just so amazingly different than watching something online. However, and this comes back to the community that you already have. If you don't already have this community, what happens to people whose first experience is mainly watching online? Do they want to come to the theater? So there are two lines of thinking that at least we're trying to do here. One is to take a very positive view and to say that people who have not yet seen this work will now have at least an introduction to it, and they will know something. People who already know the work have seen more and have become better educated, so they have better judgment, so they have greater demands. I mean, your audience has greater demands. I mean, your audience is knowledgeable and has good judgment and knows, a lot about the art form. Then what you produce, then the artists will be encouraged and they can then together push the boundaries even further. So two good things can come out of this. One is just more people know about it, and maybe they will be curious enough to come. And the second thing is that as the people who already know have more experience, they have seen more productions, they have heard more artists, that they will also be a very good audience. They will be a better audience than before for the artists who will perform for them live. And in this way, the whole thing can be made to grow. Now, this is the positive way of looking at it, and I hope that this will be true. I think that it will be true to some measure. But will there be some people who choose not to? Maybe. But the one way to look at it is that even if they choose not to come to the venue, the art is reaching them, and that we're serving people who choose not to come to the venue, serving them in a different way. So I don't think one will ever replace the other. Just as, I mean, people at the very long ago, when recordings were made, when there was television, people said, "Oh no, the theater will die, orchestra will die," and that's not been the case. In fact, it thrives, and sometimes the the performances and the recordings and whatever it is on YouTube and whatever that people are able to see will generate the curiosity to come to live performances. So, but it is important to work with, I think, that digital dimension. And on that digital dimension, I think the quality also will become more important. And it shows very quickly the work that is just archived, the work that was produced and in archive, and the work that is newly produced for a digital experience. So as one of the major trends that I can see is, and just from how our audiences respond, is that people want to get involved. So participation is a big trend, and on the digital platforms that we have, I think there's also the possibility of participating, of being involved, of also co co-creation. And I think those might be important dimensions. So the artist or the presenter having complete control of everything is one way of doing things, and we've done this, in that way for a long time. But I think the co-creation, the sharing of the creative process, I think that could be very exciting going forward. With all of these new conditions in our auditoriums. Sorry, can you hear me? Sorry about that. I think I hope that when this COVID-19 this particular episode of the COVID-19 is over, what we will take away is to be stronger and to be clearer in where we needed to develop and where we needed to to focus our strengths. I think I said earlier, the creative process. What a festival for us, for an organization like mine, what a festival does is to bring the artists and the audience together. There are now maybe different ways of doing that. Not only to have one lot on the stage and the other in the auditorium, but in a more shared kind of space. It can be real. It can be, and this is already happening in some productions, and this is why I spent some time talking about our festival at Daegun experience, which is really very very heavily focused on audience participation and artists leading. And still, I mean, the artists are still in a leading position because it is their vision, it is their creativity, it is their understanding of human nature, for instance, understanding of the world. For instance, this Finnish choreographer for whom physical contact, touching, is an important thing, right? So it's that concept, but then how you do this, the level of participation is much deeper than if she did a work with dancers to show you. So I think that experiential dimension is important. We're looking now at some work that is intended for online experience, and I don't mean just the Zoom boxes where the musicians are together and you can also join. I think this may in fact open up new ways of doing art, and if when there are new ways of doing things, I think it's exciting. And I think that it makes you focus on why you do it and what it is that you actually do. Because the habit, the things that you normally do just out of habit, because especially when it's well established, you know that you have a timeline, you know that you have to do, first number one, number two, number three, and then the follows, and then where you go is part of that journey. Now it may, the number one, number two, number three may not work. So you need to have a slightly longer view of why you're doing it and what it is that you're doing, so that you can revise and review all of the hows and the in order to achieve the what. And I think it's an amazing opportunity to be able to do this at this time. I this one so I hope I have introduced briefly what the Hong Kong Arts Festival is and does. Some of the major things that the major ways in which we try to serve our audiences and our art and the artists that we work with. So the big festival itself, 100 and something performances, no limits, which focuses on a particular community and are very participatory work. And that we will continue to do this work, but at the same time, we will be also looking at a new dimension. So the 49th festival is scheduled. We are after the second half of 2020, we will do these rescheduled programs, which you're seeing on the screen right now. And then after that, we will plan for the 49th festival, again, to do as much music, theatre, opera, dance, all of the things that we know and love as much as possible, but also mindful of the need to have a digital dimension, because it will be a different way of connecting, of making that connection. It will be a different way. It will give us another platform, a different channel in which we can connect our audiences and our artists and the work that they do. So and on that connection, there's one more thing that I wanted to bring up, and that's the importance of doing something like this. I mean, I would love to be in Seoul. I would love to be in Korea. And a year ago, I would have said, sure, I'll come over and speak with the students in this class, but we would never have thought about doing this. And this is, I'm not sure how satisfying it is to you, but I'm thrilled that I'm able to do this and I have the opportunity to share the thinking. And the reason that I have the opportunity to share this goes back to connections that were made more than 10 years ago with Professor Kim. We were both in a network that was the Asia Pacific Arts Festivals. And uh, go, go, I'm going to repeat a little bit because I think this is an important point. The connections and the community is so important in everything that we do. So Professor Kim and I were both in this network of festivals. We met, we talked about, what your festival does, what my festival does. We talked about Tim, we talked about, is there a project that we could collaborate in together? So we did. So in the Hong Kong Arts Festival, we were experimenting with contemporary opera at the time. And I thought, aha, okay, I know the people, I know somebody who knows contemporary music, and has and can help. And he was interested. So we did a project together. So this happened out of a connection that was made in a network, and then out of shared interests, and out of from Professor Kim's side, a complete openness of heart and generosity of spirit. So we didn't sit down and make a contract, right? We sat down and said, this is an interesting idea. What can you do? I have this. What can we share? What your strengths are, and Hong Kong Festival's strengths are. How can we make this come together so that we make something that's interesting? And that's how it happened. And on the back of a connection was was shared interest, was projects, was a continuing friendship, which led me to really some of the best things that I've enjoyed in Korea, including some fantastic music, and now this. So this is a bit long-winded, and I know Professor Kim doesn't like me to talk about him that much, but but this is important. And those investments, especially when you're still studying, when any network is really really important, and that's the other reason. Well, that's one of the reasons I think this is so critical. In a way, it makes sense because the arts, what we do, is about connecting people, and in a very kind of systematic way. I talk about connecting the festival as an organization that connects artists and audiences, but within all of that, what the art actually does is to connect people, to connect the visions of the artists, to connect their how they see humanity with the lives of the people who come for the arts, to enrich their lives, to make it richer, to make them think in a different way, to feel in a different way, to if only for a short time, and to be curious about life and possibilities in a different way. So those the connection, connecting with other human beings, connecting with other people anywhere, is probably, to me, it is anyway, at the heart of what we do. And so this is again very long introduction to. I just wanted to talk very briefly for 3 minutes or so about an organization that I'm also involved in, and that's the International Society for the Performing Arts. In fact, it's a it's a global network, about 500 or so leaders in the arts from 60 territories. And we had actually a career in Seoul. Sorry. So ISPA does a congress. It does 2 congresses every year. One in New York in the beginning of the year, and then one media congress somewhere else in the world. And so both Hong Kong and Seoul have hosted this congress. It's a wonderful way of connecting. I was in the Seoul one, and I hope that many Korean friends were. I'm sure many Korean friends were in the Hong Kong one as well. And it's not always Asia, but in different parts of the world. If you do have a moment, just Google it, look it up. ISPA, International Society for the Performing Arts. It's been like this Asian network that Professor Kim and I were in, it's been a real strength in my life, in my career, in my profession, and it's amazing that I have contacts with these creative, intelligent, engaged, interested people that I can call on and I can talk to and uh, talk through ideas, look for partnerships, look for collaborations, of course, because it is about work as well. But more than that, it's this sense of community. It's this sense of connectedness. And if nothing, COVID-19 has shown us how very connected we are. And those of us who are working in a global way, in international way, this connection is so important. You're seeing, the Hong Kong Arts Festival 49th logo on your screen. We're planning for that festival. I like to joke to say that Hong Kong is by nature such an international society, such an international city, that we don't bother to put international in there. When you say Hong Kong, it is by nature open to the world. In this time, Hong Kong has not been open to the world. There are travel restrictions, and the world is also perhaps not open to Hong Kong without quarantine, without 14 days of separation from, of being to make sure that you don't have anything that you can spread. And so it's a very peculiar time, but more because of that separation, because of that isolation, because of the impossibility of being together and actually touching each other. I think the connections are even more important. And I'm very, very grateful for the connection that I've been able to make with you today. And I have we can see if there are any questions, if there's anything, subjects that I haven't covered that you would like to discuss. I'd be very happy to discuss them. There are so many, many new ideas out there. I'm entirely open, and I was told to speak with you, and I'm very happy to do that. But I'm also much more interested in learning from you to see what you think and to see how you see the future going forward. While we're waiting for those for any questions to come in, really, I think for me, for the festival, the performing arts live is at the heart of what we do, but the digital world, just as recordings, the orchestra is still a wonderful thing, but the recordings will be a part of that experience. And I think that will be true uh, in different ways as well. Is Ju saying something? I can't hear.
Yes, I'm just following up all the YouTube thing here. And since there is 9 seconds, around 9 seconds latency between the Zoom and the YouTube, yeah, I was waiting for other participants joining. I actually just have a small question about your this Hong Kong Arts Festival. Um, as a director, and maybe you are involved in a lot of curation in a lot of genres, not only the contemporary music, but also the dance and theater, and also the interdisciplinary fields. But as a curator, like, what is your like, what is your criteria when you choose the work to bring to this arts festival, and what is your like perspective on those works when you decide whether to perform in this festival or not? Like, I was curious about that as a performer and also as a student here. You're muted, so yeah, you have to turn on your audio.
Okay, that it's a very good question. Thank you, Drew. It's actually key to what the festival is and what the festival will be going into the future. Always quality. That's always the first criteria, and the second is, I guess, relevancy. So we will not present work that we do not ourselves believe in and feel to be wonderful. So that's the first, right? If we don't believe in it, I mean, why are you doing it, right? So we are totally behind everything that we will present to our audiences. The second is relevancy, and relevancy is has many dimensions there are several dimensions to this idea of relevancy. But for us, because we are in, of, and for Hong Kong, the relevancy has to be in about this city, about our community, about where we live. And again, there are two dimensions to this. Everything seems to have two dimensions. I don't know why. There are two dimensions to this. One is artistically, the relevancy is that it's work that our audience would be interested in. It relates to work that we have been seeing in Hong Kong in the past, but not repeating it, but it's part of that journey that we take together. And the relevancy sometimes, not always, sometimes would be in terms of subject matter, in terms of topic, in terms of what people are thinking about, in terms of ideas that are important in Hong Kong at this particular point in time. I mean, this will change over time. Both will change over time. The relevancy in artistic terms, because there will be a time when people are more curious about one composer or one, form than others. So those are constant criteria. But above that is the desire to add to the ecology. So if it's already been done by somebody else, then there's no point for us to do the same thing. So like I tried to say in the beginning, either a new work, a new trend, something that's happening not yet in Hong Kong, but a new trend that's in the world that we would like to Hong Kong to be aware of, or a new way of doing a classical work. So something that is relevant and of we think potentially of interest to our audiences, and of course to our artists as well, because this is part of this community. I think one of the strengths of the festival is that all of my colleagues are absolute fans of the performing arts. So if we rush out of the office at the end of the day, we are likely to meet each other again in the concert hall or in the theater or somewhere else. And the next morning we will discuss, oh, we saw this, and what did you think? And so we are very much part of this community. We are part of the audience that is in Hong Kong. Some of my colleagues have grown up with the festival. They remember going and buying student tickets when they were young, discount tickets when they were young. And so the festival has grown up with the community, has and the people who work in the festival, the team has also grown up with the community, with the festival, with the city, and we're very much embedded in the city. I think, um, obviously there's work that we share with other cities. We share with Korea. We share with other parts of China. Work that come to us sometimes, especially big orchestras. They always do an Asian tour. That's fine, because those are things that we can all share. But if you take the whole festival and just put it somewhere else, I don't think that will work, because we have very deep roots in the city. And again, I seem to be using that word community a lot today. Um, the festival is very much part of the community here, the Hong Kong story, the Hong Kong story of the last 48 years, and I hope the Hong Kong story of the next 48 years as we go forward. And because Hong Kong is always changing, and because the festival gets to start new every year. I mean, every festival does, right? You have a history, but you also are able to start completely fresh. I think that will keep us energized and I hope interesting to our audiences going forward. I hope that kind of answers the question.
Yeah, it was great to hear that your festival always tried to reflect this very fast changing period era, all the issues over the world. And also, I definitely agree with that. The festival's key, one of the festival's key role is to like build the community and connect the people between the audience and artists. I think that would also maintain the same after this coronavirus period. And I really love that idea of big. It's such a big idea of the festival actually, and it was lovely to hear that. And actually, we are running out of time,
Oh,
so we have. Yeah, so we have to wrap up this talk right now, but maybe we can share this your talk via YouTube and also with our Facebook that so we can share with a lot more people after
thank
this.
you. Thank you for this opportunity. And come, visit the festival website. We're on Facebook as well, and just let's make this community work for all of us together for the arts. Thank you.
Very much for today.